is that you're really trying to cultivate correct worldview, and
Uh-oh. Back to eating.
Allison said Mercury's in retrograde.
Is it?
Uh-huh.
And the aliens are coming too.
That's right.
I'm sorry, you guys. And understanding where things come from is important. So the success of your business isn't going to come from, it is going to come from your marketing indirectly, but it's actually going to come from your generosity. And so I think being attached to the praise that you give yourself, or if it's a lie, then if it's out of some sort of insecurity or something like that.
Well, would you also say that
that's when it's not healthy?
Would you also say it's tied
Looking at the concentric circles of it. I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Or would you say it's tied into like putting someone else down and putting yourself higher in that way? Like
well, that's the other part of it, but the two vows are separate, but they're also connected. So if you're doing one and the other, then you're breaking both parts of the vow. But the way they break out in our vow book is separately criticizing ourselves. It's really for the adulation of others, and and it really does have to be not truthful praise, like boasting things, saying things that aren't true about yourself. Okay. The second one is the root downfall of failing to give the Dharma or material assistance. So that's selfishness, stinginess. The third one, the root downfall of failing to accept someone's apology or suggestion, or striking another, hitting somebody. Okay. The root downfall of giving up the greater way or teaching false dharma. So that's the greater way. There is the Mahayana, giving up the greater way. And teaching false dharma is teaching false ideas about emptiness, really. Karma, emptiness. Misleading people. Saying something's, speaking about things as if they're scripture when they're just your ideas, that kind of thing. The fifth one is the root downfall of stealing what belongs to the three jewels. The sixth one, the root downfall of giving up the highest dharma. Similar to 4, but different. This is saying that you deny the teachings, that the teachings are from the Buddha. The Buddhist teachings come from that source. 7 is the root downfall of taking away someone's robes and the rest, right? Removing someone from the status of an ordained person. So discrediting would be something that we could do. Like, we're not in a position where we're going to remove somebody's robes, but we can do it metaphorically in how we think about people or speak. And then the root downfall of committing one of the 5 immediate misdeeds, right? Killing your mother, killing your father, killing an arhat, creating a schism in the Sangha, or drawing the blood of a Buddha, harming a Buddha. And then number 9 is the root downfall of holding wrong views, which is typically seen as not believing that the laws of karma are true, or that not believing in past or future lives. Okay.
Can I ask a question about 7?
Yeah.
So I went to a Catholic high school. Well, actually, I guess the first question, does that apply to other traditions, or is it just Buddhist?
Were you undressing a nun? No, I'm sorry. So that might not have been tactful. I'm sorry.
No, but does it apply to like Christianity, or like in like Catholic, or is it just purely Buddhist ordained?
Well, it would, for me, it would apply across the board. I don't know that you'd actually be breaking a bodhisattva vow if you were to, I mean, I think you probably would, if you were just, I don't know, that's for sure. I don't think when these vows were written originally, there weren't nuns and
Right.
and priests, it was before Christ. And so, but
Well,
I
maybe some
don't know, Mark. I think that it could, if you were, if the person was dishonoring the faith, and because of that, as an act of kindness, you took them out of you took their ordination, whatever credential away from them.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's breaking a vow.
Okay.
But if you were doing it as a way to demean them or diminish them in some way that wasn't, out of your anger or lack of faith or whatever, then that would be something else. Then that's breaking a vow.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So then we'll go on to, so something that comes up for me when I'm describing the vows is the idea of concentric circles, right? The 6 Time a Day book, which I have over here, but the, how do you keep these vows? Like, you're not in a position to, strip somebody of their robes. You're, what else is here that's like, how pertinent is it? There's some more in this batch that we're going to do today. But I want you to think about it in terms of, think about the vows in terms of like the first vow we're going to do today is destroying the root downfall of destroying towns, cities, regions, or countries, right? Like, we're really not in a position where we're going to do that directly, right? So how do you think about that vow? That actually breaks into 4 vows. The root vow of destroying a town is one vow. The root vow of destroying a city, destroying regions, or destroying a country. So, how do you think about I don't know, like using resources, maybe, something that could cause the future demise of the world, so humanity, or so think about those things, as you work on these vows. Like, what is an attitude that you might have that could lead to the destruction of I don't know, a way of being, a way of living, a way of life, or whatever. The other way I look at this vow is like when I'm doing stuff around my house and I come upon a bee's nest or something like that, like that's a country. You know, what do you do with that? What do you do to a bee's nest that's like, you know, I had one last fall. It was in my wood pile that I wanted to chop up for firewood, you know. It was a big old nest. So anyway, I researched it and found out that those bees would die after a couple of frosts. And so I used wood from a different wood pile until after the frost. And then I was okay. But there's things like that, you know, you just have to, you may want to, that is a concentric circle for this vow.
Well, I had a
Yes.
kind of a similar situation. I have carpenter bees drilling holes in my cedar deck and the
Yeah.
pergola. So I read somewhere that you get a paper bag and fill it up with plastic bags and hang it, and they think it's a hornet's nest and they leave. And that way I don't have to destroy
Oh, I saw
them. And
something like that.
they can find a new home somewhere, but I don't have to harm them.
Oh, yeah, did it work?
I've only seen a couple, and I used to see tons of them. So I'm
Wow.
hoping they're leaving.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I know. I found like the internet's great for those kinds of solutions, you know, can find stuff out, find ways to. I'm dealing with rodents in my house right now. That's a challenge.
Mm.
But I'm so far avoided the battle. But I'm having, it's not easy, you know, I'm not poisoning them or killing them. And I do have a feral cat that's moved in that I seem to be okay with him, like reducing the rodent population. So I don't know. It's tough. Samsara's tough. I don't know. Maybe it's not for you guys. It is for me. All right. Okay. So did we cover that? Anger, desire? Oh, and yeah, the destruction has to come out of anger, desire, or ignorance. Like any of these vows really have to come out of like that basic ignorance, ignorant disliking, ignorant liking, or basic ignorance. And really keeping the book. I mean, we'll talk more about the book. Well, why don't I go through these and then we can talk about the 6 Time a Day book. So the next root downfall is the root downfall of teaching emptiness to a person who's not yet mentally prepared. So you commit this vow if you teach emptiness to a person, and they have to be a person that has the wish for enlightenment, like they want to become enlightened. You teach emptiness to them in such a way that it freaks them out and they give up the Mahayana. They take up lower practices, like Hinayana practices, you know, which is limited to refuge. Right. So specifically for this vow, they need to be a person who doesn't understand emptiness. They haven't studied it. They don't understand it. You describe it in such a way that it scares them. and then they also have to have the wish to achieve enlightenment. Okay. So if they are somebody that understands emptiness, you've checked them out, they understand emptiness, and you teach them. You're not careless about what you're doing. You teach them, and then because of what you teach them, they decide that they're going to take a lower path, a different path, a lesser path, something other than the Mahayana path, then you don't break this vow. But if you're careless about your teaching and they have that desire and you teach it in such a way that scares them, okay?
You would say
And I would say what this goes to is, like when you're, like, I get excited about this stuff. I remember like talking to my son, he's now 29. I think he was probably 8 or 9. And I was just learning about emptiness, and I was like, oh, wow. And I did the pen with him, and he was just like, he kind of freaked out, I didn't have vows or anything, but had I had vows at that time, it would have been inappropriate, so, and it didn't freak him out, but it kind of pissed him off, and he didn't want to study the Dharma anymore. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. So, so from then on, like, I do my Dharma with my kids and stuff, really using what they say as the, impetus to teach from, without using a lot of Dharma language. I use their language, So I remember trying to explain something about karma to my now 17-year-old. And he said, well, I don't believe in karma, but I believe everything happens for a reason. I'm like, that'll do. That's good enough. So, skillful means, is the thing that I'm wanting to suggest. Like, be careful about how you talk about things with people, so that you don't turn them away, even from their own faith. You don't turn them away from their own faith, but use it as a way maybe to enhance their faith. Because, a lot of this stuff's very, very closely interconnected. Some things just, like, the way I see it is that Buddhism just took these other faiths like to another level by going to emptiness, like a place beyond God, as an ultimate. Like, God is a label placed on a thing that has limitations that we formulate misconstrued ideas about. They're limited ideas. Our karma forces us to have certain ideas about the word God, and those things are not true, ultimately. They could be useful, but they're not true. They're not like, because if they were true, it would be the same for everybody. And everybody has different ideas about what God is. Yeah. All right. So that's that one. And now the 12th one's quite similar to the 10th one, but it's different. So the 12th one is the root downfall of causing a person to turn back from total enlightenment. So this one you break if you tell somebody, listen, you're all right and everything, but you're never going to get enlightened. You just don't have what it takes. So you should really back off of the total enlightenment trail and take refuge and be happy with that. Right? That would be breaking this vow. Everybody by hook or by crook, everybody's going to come to the experience of seeing freedom. Everybody is going to come to the place of freedom, ultimate freedom, total ultimate freedom. It's in our DNA. It's in a bug's DNA. So there's you have no place saying something like that to anybody. Okay. The vows committed if a person that you're talking to actually hears you, hears what you say, understands it, and then gives up the higher way, the bodhisattva path. Okay, and then the next one is the root down, this number 13. It's the root downfall of causing a person to give up the morality of freedom. Yeah, so these are the freedom vows, right? Technically the person has to be keeping a set of freedom vows. The lay vows that we keep, the 10 virtues, that counts. Lifetime lay lay person vows also count, or in the case of a ordained person, it would be the vows of a monks or a nun or nuns. So the way that this is done, and it's if you're to say to a person, you don't need those vows. Once you take the Mahayana, once you take your Bodhisattva vows, you don't need the Pratimoksha vows anymore. You don't need your freedom vows. And to look underneath that one a little bit, this is something that happens too. I was in a school where this happened. And before I was in this school, where indiscretions were explained away as, oh, we don't have to do that anymore because we're higher practitioners now. It's very confusing to have those kind of teachings be given, and it's harmful, harmful to the whole essence of the path. The vows are the essence of the Buddhist path. They're very cool. they do anyway. They do a lot of things, So pratimoksha vows are about not harming others, right? The bodhisattva vows are about doing good, collecting goodness. Those two really have to go. I mean, it's really important that those two go hand in hand. To say, oh, you don't have to worry about not harming other people. Let's just focus on doing good, right? That's a shadow. You leave your shadow unattended when when you do that. You see, you're not working on the dark side of your being. And maybe you guys don't have one, but I have tendencies that are negative that creep in if I'm not paying attention. So it's weird. It's like my nature, it's like it's kind of was built into the nature I was born with or something, some of them. And so I have to really be conscious to change that thing that's like sort of in the fabric of my being, right? And as you move into deeper and deeper understandings of these teachings and come to higher teachings, like the tendency is to move in that direction towards, hey, let's just do the good thing and leave the other stuff alone. Like it's really attractive, it's seductive. And the pratimoksha vows give a basis to work out the shadow stuff so that when you do get to those higher teachings, you have the humility and grace to actually manage them well and not harm anybody. You know yourself. You get to know yourself really well through all the vows. It's one of the beauties of them. They kind of get into your nooks and crannies and shine a light in there. Okay, if you're paying attention, and that's where the 6 Time a Day book comes really in handy. Like, isn't there like a biblical verse like know thyself and something happens, like God or something like that? Something like that. So that was a lot of my own commentary. You have to excuse me. But that's how the vow gets broken. If you tell somebody they don't need them, the Mahayana path is all you need to become, to progress. All right, 14th, disparaging the Hinayana. How's the vow read? The root downfall of holding that a person cannot eliminate desire and the rest. Oh, nice artwork there, Mark. By following the way of the learner. So this is a mistaken view. If you promote the idea that a person who is a listener, that's a person who, for whatever reason, they can hear the teachings, but they don't have the capacity to practice them for whatever reason that is. It could be physiological, it could be life circumstance, it could be mental. So, conventionally speaking, it could be any of those 3 things. And so it's not true. People can reach nirvana, eliminate there's mental afflictions and free themselves from suffering that aren't on the Mahayana path. that's, listeners, self-made Buddhas, and, Pure Landers, like people who just don't have time to don't have time. Number 15 is the root downfall of professing the complete opposite. That is, of saying that you've seen emptiness or deities or the like directly when you have not. Okay, so this is like telling a lie. If you haven't seen emptiness directly and you proclaim that you have, in order to like convince somebody to do something, like that your ideas about emptiness are correct because you've seen it directly or whatever. It's a lie, and it's breaking a vow. So just be honest about your practice.
Could I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Is the opposite of that true as well? If somebody had seen the direct perception of emptiness and they didn't let us know that they did, would that be breaking that vow, or is it just
No, that's
lying?
not. That's really not breaking the vow. Actually, if you've had a direct perception of emptiness, traditionally, it's not something you talk a lot about.
Right.
I've never heard that. And actually, if you've seen deities or had experiences that are paranormal kind of experiences, they lose power if you talk about them. They lose some inner power that they hold for the person. For one thing, words never do them justice.
Yeah.
And so when you hear yourself speak words about something that's really not of this world or something, it's not conventional, it diminishes the experience. Like it's like a photograph doesn't do justice to the thing that you're taking a picture of usually.
Mm-hmm.
And that puts seeds in your mind that diminish the experience in a way. The other thing is about those kinds of experiences is if you tell them to somebody and they're like, huh? Like, what are you, crazy? That's not good for you either. And it's not good for them, and it's not good for you. So it's, those kinds of experiences, you would save to talk to somebody who is aware of those things that you might seek advice from. Like, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. That makes sense.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And those are important questions because you wonder, like, what does it mean if, so, so you want to be able to find somebody that you can talk to about usually. Okay. So number 16 then is the root downfall of, this is going to sound familiar, the root downfall of accepting what belongs to the three jewels when someone presents it to you. Right? Sounds like one from last week. I think it's number 6, maybe. No, number 5. It's similar, but it's different. So this is if this is accepting what belongs to the three jewels when someone presents it to you. So this, in this case, it's when somebody with some authority takes something from one Dharma practitioner and gives it to another, or one Sangha, one, and like they take it as a form of punishment, like it's a way to, so, the example is, a king like doesn't like one monastery, but likes another one. So they take all the stuff from the one monastery and give it to the other one. And it's, just a personal thing. Then you shouldn't accept those things if you have vows. So how do you think about that in your 6 time a day book?
Would that be respecting other people's property?
Yeah, it goes with that for sure. But it's a little deeper than that. What comes to mind for me, I saw the movie, The Trial of the Chicago 7 the other night. Have you guys seen that? It's on Netflix. And it's really good. Like the judge had prejudices, and there were people that benefited from those prejudices of the 7, and people that lost out because of those prejudices. So I think accepting the benefit of being on the upside of his prejudice, would be pushing on this vow, being willing to see somebody else take a hit so that you benefit. And that goes to social stuff, like we're all white people, and we have privilege because of that, I believe. And, is there places where we can affect change that way, balance the scale? And I think to be consciously accepting of that privilege in such a way that while we know somebody else is being harmed is pushing on this vow. Mm-hmm. It might also be like destroying towns or regions or something like that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're already up to 17. We're rolling through. Let me see if I had anything else to say about that. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So,
Well,
yeah, I missed a vow. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
thought, yeah, but that's not why I'm unmuting. Can we talk about 17 a little bit more?
Yeah, I didn't get to it yet,
Did
but
you
I
give
missed
it?
I missed a vow. And it's in our vow book, like, and you guys will get one. If you take vows, I'll get you a book. So you can keep your vows, you can track them. And, but there's a vow 14 and a half. And it's also going to sound really familiar. And it's praising yourself and criticizing others. And we do have it in our book. Now, in the text, it talks about it. It's just subsumed by the first vow, right? Criticizing yourself, criticizing others, praising yourself. But this one's more specific, and it's praising yourself in the context of teaching. So if you're a teacher and you praise yourself and it for material gain. So but you also criticize another teacher so they don't get material gain. And you claim that you're not in it for the material gain. So it's lying about somebody else's attributes and claiming you have those attributes, and you're doing it for selfish reasons. Again, all this stuff is so it's ignorance that you're denying, you're basically breaking the ninth vow when you do that. You're saying you don't believe in karma. I guess that's the case with all of these, but you're not saying it directly, so you're not really breaking the vow. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. Like, these are all, pay attention to karma, you won't get in trouble. But these are all ways to help us pay better attention to the subtle ways that we deny that karma exists, Such a tough idea to keep present in our mind all the time. So the vows really help with that. Especially if you keep in a 6 time a day book, this becomes your nature. It's awesome. And it's such a powerful thing. Okay. Are we up to 17? Oh, did I finish 14? Oh, yeah. I did, right? 14 and a half. It's really specific to teaching the Mahayana, saying that Mahayana practitioner, that Mahayana teacher is in it for personal gain. And I'm not, when it's really the opposite. And it's for self-adulation. Okay. You all right? Okay, number 17.
Will,
Yes.
before you do 17, can we talk about 16 a little bit more?
Yes.
So how would you determine because I heard your example, and I'm just wondering, like, how do you determine what belongs to the Dharma, the Buddha, the Sangha? Can you extrapolate out like another example there?
Okay. So it's a good question. Depends on your view. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'll have vows later that have to do with seeing all things as pure,
Mhm.
all beings as your teacher. All living beings are your teacher, right? Bugs, you know, microbes, like it's all your teacher. So
then
that's
it
a
all
much more
belongs.
expanded view than like somebody that's ordained, you know, a temple, an ordained person, or the Buddha themselves, you know, Shakyamuni, right? Like it's so that's what I mean. It depends on your view.
Mhm.
If you can hold a view of all beings being your teacher, being the teacher, then it applies to everybody.
Right.
It's a good
Thank you.
question. It's a good question. And really, you know, like take it at the degree that you're able to, you know, and work with the concentric circles. So like, you know, you could take it very literally as the center, but then as you circle out, you can expand it to all beings. All right. Like, what are the little things in your mind that could contribute, that little things that in your mind or in how you say things or actions that you'd take, maybe without even thinking, that could contribute to those things? That's that any of the vows, right? That's working the circle. That's how you work your book. Because there's vows in here that, you know, taken literally, you're not going to do. You just never will do them. You'll never be at risk for them. So you want to look at what is it in your mind that, you know, if you were to be born in your next life as a world leader, you know, what is it in your mind now that you could eliminate so that when you're a world leader, you're not dropping a nuclear bomb on somebody? That help?
Yeah, I think it helps. I mean, so, you know, I think, which is a perfect way for me to start this sentence, you know, I enjoy thinking, you know, I'm a little addicted to my thinking. And so, you know, I guess my question would be, and I know what you're going to say, but maybe this will benefit someone else, is, you know, how do you like walk that edge of, and this applies to all of the vows, right? Is like, I know before for me, I just was overthinking everything to the point where I almost couldn't take action, right? I felt almost, I was overthinking everything I said and did and thought. So my question for you is, how do you find that balance? And I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say, but.
No, well, it's such a good question because I think that way of that causes people to not take the vows,
Mhm.
you know, because they're like, oh my God, I'll never be able to keep these the way they're talking about.
Mhm.
So, but to really more directly address what you're saying is the vows are to grapple with, you know, so be thoughtful, be mindful, make choices, because you can double think everything too, you know, you really can. You can like, oh, well, if it's this, then it's that. But like, you know, be in your experience. How is it that you are experiencing it? Make the choice you would make, the best choice you can, and move forward without, once you make the choice, move forward, right?
Mhm.
And then see how that experience shapes you. Like you're paying attention, you're mindful, you've got, you're bright. And so like, and then address how it is you want to change if there's something you want to see change. But we experience ourselves through our interaction in the world. We experience ourselves. We experience our aces and our spaces through engagement. We only exist because we're counterpointed by other things. Maybe that's getting a little heady, but you see, that's the only way we exist. So if we want to shape that, we need to be engaged. If we want to shape it fully, right? There's monks that go into caves, meditate, and they come out and somebody steps on their toe and they slug them in the face, because they haven't engaged, the world, like, oh, he disturbed my quietude. So that's how this path is different. It's how it's faster. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. And I appreciate that there's some thinkers in this group, people that are very much like thinking, all the time about conventional and ultimate, and, your experience, the labels that you're placing on things, that's your conventional reality. It is what you have to work with. At some point, because of your mindfulness and how you deal with your conventional world, because of your mindfulness and because of your studies, you will come to a direct perception of emptiness, or whatever, you'll come to realizations that really like shake the foundation of who you are now, and so stay with it and be engaged. I think and that's not scriptural, that's just me talking. All right. Okay. We okay? All right. So now the next downfall is the root downfall of rejecting the practice of quietude and giving the possessions of meditators to those who practice recitation. So this is similar to number 16, but it's specifically dealing with meditators versus, people that recite scripture and stuff like that. So there's so because those that meditate all the time aren't necessarily like engaged in debate, and in like they may not be intellectually oriented and have like a scholarly approach, but the scholars are the ones that run the temples, and so there was, quite obviously there's a vow about it. There was this tendency to like demean the meditators as being less than those that studied scripture. Because the ones that study scripture, the ones that win the debates, they're the ones that run the temples. They're the one that run the Dharma centers. that's their mental kind of framework that they work with. Those that are into quietude tend to be, spend a lot of time on their cushion and maybe are more reflective and that kind of thing. So anyway, this addresses like don't play favorites with people's different ways of approaching their spiritual life. Breaking this vow would be taking stuff from the meditators and giving it to the people that are more scholarly, more people that are more on the scholarly approach to the Dharma. A great example of this is the story of Master Shantideva, who was a great meditator. But that's all he did. He never came out of his room other than to go to the bathroom or to get something to eat. And so they called him Mr. Three Thoughts. He was like ridiculed in the monastery that he lived at because they called him Mr. Three Thoughts. All he does is sleep, eat, and poop, and that's all he thinks about is those three things, And so the scholars all wanted to embarrass him, so they invited him to give a teaching to the whole monastery. He accepted the invitation. They built this throne for him to teach from. It was like 10 feet tall. It was higher than he could easily climb up on. And they didn't give him any steps to get up on it. So he walked into the hall, and people were joking and laughing and like waiting to see him make a fool of himself. And there was like just a flicker of light or something, and boom, he was sitting on top of the throne. And then he proceeded to give the teaching of the guide that is what we know of as the guide to the Bodhisattva way of life, one of the greatest teachings ever, in the Mahayana tradition. And, the way the story goes is when he got to the 9th chapter, he lifted up off of he actually lifted up off of his seat and started to fly away. And there was high practitioners there that were able to follow him for a little while, but then he just disappeared. And they found him much later in a cave, and he was meditating. And actually, the way the story goes is that Master Shantideva went spent the rest of his life caring for the sick. And so anyway, that's a good example of people ridiculing meditators and the meditator, having great capacity. You just don't know who people are by their appearance. You just don't know.
So Will, I'm thinking of both your comment about these concentric circles and Mark's earlier comment about other religions, if these vows affect that. My question is, for instance, when I hear people say, oh, I'm sending you my thoughts and my prayers, or how you hear that if there's gun violence and the president says, I'm sending thoughts and prayers. And myself and others, will say, well, thanks a lot, but that's not good enough. Would that be a type of kind of breaking this vow, though, saying that prayer, I'm thinking something else is better than prayer?
Oh, yeah, it's in that neighborhood.
It's in that neighborhood.
You know, I'm right. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I was just trying to think of your circle thing too, you know, like going out a little further.
yeah. Yeah. I think that, you know, I think we have to be careful with our judgments of things and, you know, and pay attention to our own actions. You know, underneath it all, we're all heading the same direction. You know, we all want the same things.
Mhm.
And our negative thoughts are the things that are obstacles to attaining those things, not just for ourselves, but for others. Right?
Yeah.
I was on the phone with a friend this week for an hour. He was telling me all about, you know, his conspiracy theories and stuff. Great guy. I love this guy, right? Good friend. And but he drinks poison all day long, you know?
Yeah.
And finally, after, you know, he talked for so long about all this stuff, you know, with the vaccines and all this stuff. I was just like, man, because I was that way at one point. I was very active politically and environmental stuff. And, you know, it's like drinking poison. So I really spend my energy focusing on rooting that stuff out and doing good, you know, like root out the poison. The way we judge other people in negative ways and all that, disparaging others, criticizing others with our thoughts, you know. That's a big one for me, you know.
Yeah. Same. Good. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Since you just said that, criticizing others. Can,
did I just criticize my friend? I hope not. I do love him. And actually when we got off the phone after I said stuff, I was like, I think I just probably made him feel like shit because I just said I'm not into that. But go ahead.
No, can we just talk about that again as one of the root downfalls and what that means to break that vow?
To criticize others?
Yeah. Like, because after we talked about that, I'm like, oh my crap, have I been breaking this vow for like 5 years straight, like every day?
Forever.
And it's a root downfall too,
Or
right?
1,400 lifetimes.
But also the
Time to
thing
put
that's
the
a root
brakes on it.
downfall, isn't that all right,
Yeah.
what does it mean to break that totally?
Well, let's get into that next week.
Okay.
All right, because we're going to do the chains next week,
Right.
like what it is to break a vow, completely break it. If you break part of it, it becomes the same as breaking a secondary vow.
Right.
Let's leave it at that for
Okay.
now, okay? Because we'll get into it next week. And hang on to that as one that you want to focus on, all right? That point. Okay, we got one more vow to do. It's the root downfall of discarding the wish for enlightenment. Okay, and you break this one when you just like say, you know what, I'm never going to get enlightened. I just don't have, you know. The problem with this vow is it does not take the 4 chains to break it. If you just for a moment in frustration or whatever, say, you know what, I'm never going to get enlightened. Or I'm not, this idea of helping all sentient beings, like that's hogwash. Like if you were to, if you take that attitude, then you break this vow. Even for a second, they say. You can feel the bodhicitta leave you, All right. So there's some fine points to discuss. So you don't need the 4 chains to break the 18th vow, and you don't need the 4 chains to break the 9th vow. Holding wrong worldviews, holding wrong views, right? Right, saying, I don't believe in karma. This Dharma stuff, I don't know. I don't know who cooked it up, but I'm not into it anymore. Then you're breaking the vow, And hey, if that's where you're at, you don't need the vows anymore. You're not into it. You don't believe in them anyway. So why not walk away? Okay, but you don't need the 4 chains, which definitely the other 16 are harder to break, and we'll talk about that next week. So number 9, holding wrong views, and number 18, giving up, discarding the wish for enlightenment. Those you don't need the chains for. You just, if that's a choice you make, that's a decision you make, then you're done. Then it's done. That vow's broken. All right, let's see, what else do we? On the vow number 17, that's the one where you're taking away, it's one way that Geshe-la talks about it is the institution of a bad rule. So it's a rule that favors one group over another. And to break the rule, you have the 3 parties involved. You have a person or a group of people that are meditators. You have another group or person that are more into scriptural recitation. And then you have the person that takes from one and gives to the other. And that's the person that breaks the vow. Now, receiving something that's taken away from somebody as punishment, that's a vow. So, that's another vow. That's a different vow. But those are the 3 parts to vow number 17. Do you understand the difference between the 5th vow and the 16th vow? Which is, one is stealing property of the 3 jewels. The other one is receiving property that was improperly taken from the 3 jewels, right? Taken as punishment.
Okay, what is the difference?
What is the difference?
Yeah.
Well, one is where you're involved in taking this stuff, and the other is you receive it from the party that did take it. And I think when we spoke about it last week, I thought of it. I was thinking in concentric circles and saying, if I received something that was stealing, but this vow clarifies that really and makes it more clear that it's really different things. One is stealing it directly, the other one is receiving it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions? So the meditations are, meditate on each vow, think about how close you may have come to breaking any one of the vows, and then think about times when you've been the furthest away from breaking those vows. All right, and I think that's useful, helpful meditation. And cycle through, like you don't have to do all 9 every meditation. You can do 3 in one meditation, that's good. Okay. Somebody want to lead Sashipuki?
I could do it.
Thanks, Mark.
Sashi Puki.
Puki drukshin me tokram. Rira blinchin yendegin padi. Sangit bindu mikte wagi. Drokunam dakshingla juparsho. Idam gururatnamanda kamyatayami.
Gewati.
Ikyokun tsunami shizotsukshi. Tsunami shizunwe. Napakun sham. Okay, you guys. Have a good week. Enjoy your day off tomorrow.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Maybe the sun will
everyone.
come out.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, bye.